Candice, good to see you. And the third report from the Commission of Inquiry into the state capture was received by South Africa's presidency this evening. Is there a sense that this third volume will cement and subsequently encourage the president to take further action on its findings?
Good evening, Sulaiman, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, the third installment of this report is quite a damning one. As you said, it deals strictly with Bossa, which is an agency that has had government contracts since 2000 until 2016. That's a 16-year period. And what we heard during the State Capture Commission was that they got up to 2.3 billion rands worth in contracts and government contracts over their time providing security services. Now, what the Commission's report released today really shows some damning evidence around Bossa. What they're saying is that there's evidence that they generally had a corrupt business model, and that all the contracts that they got in the 16-year period from government were tainted with corruption and with bribery. They've also referred various officials from Bossa, so not government officials, but private people, part of the leadership of Bossa, to the prosecuting authorities, to the police, to the DCPI, to be investigated for corruption and fraud based on the way that they handled engagements with government. What's equally as damning is that there are also some allegations against former President Jacob Zuma, as well as members of the National Executive, Nomvula Mokonyane, who was, she was a senior minister at the time. And what they're saying in terms of Zuma is that this general evidence that he had derelicted his duty as and obligations as president at the time due to the gratifications that he received from Bossa. They're also recommending that he needs to be charged. Well, they need to investigate further corruption against him. And obviously that's warranted because he had not been before the commission. He fled, and subsequently he was jailed for contempt of court for not appearing before the commission. In terms of the National Executive, they're also recommending that Mokonyane faces charges of corruption for her dealings with Bossa. So overall, there does seem to be evidence that gives the president a real momentum to take action against government officials, but also people outside of government that are involved in corruption and state capture.
Well, while that is being awaited by the South African people, it's instructive to note that all four volumes address Bossa's role in state capture. Now, is the country generally hopeful about the report's outcomes and that those who were a part of state capture in Bossa will be prosecuted?
I mean, there's a hope that I think there's a mixed sentiment, firstly, Sulaiman. I think what we're seeing is that on the one hand, people are hoping that this commission that really took such a significant amount of South African money, taxpayers' money, more than 150 million rand in taxpayers' money to set up this commission, that there is some form of outcome and that some action does get taken. Now, the allegations of corruption against Bossa are not new. They've been around for a while. But the State Capture Commission really did have a chance to take into cognizance all the allegations around them. You know, during the commission, we saw some really colorful testimony from Angelo Agrizi, who spoke about how Bossa CEO Gavin Watson, the late Gavin Watson, had safes full of money that he used for corrupt practices. So I think that there's a sentiment that they hope these types of actions will be culled and will be taken charge of. On the other hand, I think there is a bit of disdain, thinking that government might not take action. It's been a long time that these allegations have been in the public domain and nothing has been done. It's important to note that the president is the only person who can take those recommendations forward and can take the necessary action. The commission can just make the recommendations to him. But I think that there's a hope that things might happen.
So, Candice, we saw earlier the chief of the military on the stand. What happened during that testimony, briefly?
Very briefly, Sulaiman. So the Human Rights Commission has set up the commission to understand what are the factors that led to the unrest in July last year and what was the impact on the country. And I think what we're seeing at the moment from the South African National Defence Force is really their justification for bringing so many troops on the ground. You may recall that we initially only had planned to have 10,000 soldiers on the ground, and we had then upped that to 25,000. And they were basically saying today that 25,000 5,000 troops were brought onto the ground because they believed it would create a better stability in the country. Also, at the time of the unrest, there was a lot of criticism around the fact that the soldiers were deployed quite late. And what we heard today was that, various processes needed to be undertaken. Soldiers could not just come onto the ground. They needed to be deployed by the president. And that obviously would have taken time. So that's some of the intricacy detail that we found, that we heard at the Commission's inquiry today.
Many thanks for your time, Candice Bailey.